Do your technicians actually look for qualified sales leads while they're out running their service calls? If not, you're losing a lot of money. And that is the topic of this week's Planning for Profit Minute. If your technicians are out there running their service calls day in and day out and not bringing in any qualified sales leads, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. Your service technicians have more credibility with the customer than anybody else in the company, including you as the owner, because everybody else in the company wants to sell me something. The technician, on the other hand, they're out here at my home because they're going to help me. I have a problem, I have got an issue with my system, and they're going to help me. And as a result of that, the customer will put more credibility and more trust in them than anybody else in the company. And if they would actually look for qualified sales leads, look for those opportunities to potentially just let us quote a new system to the customer, that can turn on the cash flow for the install side of your business like nothing else. And we've got a calculator to show you exactly how it will benefit you. To start out, let's simply go down under calculators. And under calculators, you will see the Retrofit Projection Calculator. When you choose that option, it's a fairly simple little calculator with a couple little boxes that you're going to fill in. The first question here is, how many calls per day do my technicians run? Well, so in my particular case, they're running on average 5 calls a day. I'm not talking about the days when they're slam busy and they're running all day. And I'm not talking about the days that they're going to sweep the shop for the 3rd time because the phone's not ringing. I'm talking about a typical day. How many calls can they run? Well, okay, 5 calls a day per technician. The next box down, second one, is how many technicians do I have? Well, I've got 2.5 technicians. Right, so 2 full-time, 1 that kind of floats back and forth between service and install. I'll plug that one in. Next one, how many working days are there per year for your company? If you're paying your technicians 40 hours a week and they're working full-time, when you subtract out weekends, you subtract out the national holidays, typical vacation for a technician, they're going to be working about 240 working days per year. 240 days where they can actually be running those service calls and bringing in revenue. Next one down is what's the rate of calls converted to a qualified sales lead. Now, this is a number that many times is debated, but we know from working with contractors across the U.S. and Canada and studying this number, a very valid KPI for a conversion of qualified sales leads is 12%. In other words, the technician should be able to convert 12% of their calls over to a qualified sales lead. We're not saying they've sold it. We're simply saying they've converted it to a qualified sales lead and we've got the opportunity to now quote the customer on a new system. Right? Very doable. We've tracked it. There are technicians all over the country who are doing that day in and day out. The next one is the average system replacement cost. So what is the average sale for a replacement system in your company? Right? So let's say in our particular case, it's $9,600. Last one, what is your average closing rate? Once you quote a job, what percentage of the time do you actually get it? Right, so in my case, I'm not doing that great. I'm at 55%. I actually get 55% of the jobs that I'm actually quoting. I've got some work to do, right? That number should be a little bit higher. Well, even with that, if we look at it, that means that we would bring in an additional $1.9 million in revenue to the installation or replacement side of my company. Let's see, I get my closing ratio up to, maybe I'm at 75%. Well, we're now at $2.5 million in additional revenue. Let's say at the same time, we also start to increase our average job, and we're no longer $9,600. We're now at $11,500. Well, we're now at $3.1 million in new work coming in for the installation or replacement side of my company. It can impact your company like nothing else and turn on the cash flow throughout the entire company. Work with your technicians. Help them to learn how to generate a qualified sales lead. And on that note, keep in mind, a qualified sales lead is not simply saying, hey, Mrs. Pertucci wants a quote on a new system. Somebody give her a call. A qualified sales lead is a technician in the home, just simply informing and educating the customer, letting them know, hey, there's a lot more efficient equipment out there today. That issue that you've got in those couple of rooms in the back corner, that could be resolved or helped, right? And at that point in time, they should literally pick up the phone, call the office, and have the sales call scheduled immediately at that point in time. And it's important to schedule it immediately, because if the call is scheduled for the comfort consultant to come out there and actually make that proposal, if it's scheduled while the tech is still in the home, 93% of the time that call will actually take place. If the technician leaves the customer's home and has somebody else reach out to the customer to find out if they could set up an appointment to come out and do that proposal, it only happens 63% of the time. You've lost almost a third of the opportunity for quoting your customer. Look for these opportunities. Spend some time with your technicians, training them in generating these qualified sales leads, and then measure and reward them for doing so. We hope that was helpful. That is this week's Planning for Profit Minute.